Bye. Good morning.
Good morning. How are you?
Good. How about y'all?
I'm doing okay, I think. Now that I've got this nightmare missing recordings almost taken care of.
Yeah, I saw your email. You got them fixed or about fixed.
Yeah, I've got two classes done. I got to finish doing the third one, but oh well. It is what it is. But of course,
Yeah.
I'm behind on everything else, so oh well. But you doing okay?
Yeah, I'm doing fine.
Good. Uh,
Aaron and Jasmine, are y'all there?
I'm here. Aaron's going to be a few minutes late.
Okay, that's fine. Uh, so that'll be okay. Tom, the Evan ended up getting a job with the gas wells, so he'll be just doing everything online now.
okay. Um. Alrighty then. Well, I guess I'll. Well, I guess I can still talk about him behind his back because I'll be able to listen to the recording.
Oh,
So
I
that's
do
fine.
all the time. He'll be all right with it.
All right.
He's pretty cool.
All right.
From 7 to 3, he said, so that'll give him time to do class and still work on his trying to get that packing house going. So
Okay. Cool. Tell him he needs to
yeah,
share his first paycheck with us.
yeah, he'll be making good money. Since Trump's been president or got elected, the uh, the coal mines here have started hiring again, especially since he signed that executive order overturning Obama's anti-coal mining stuff. And the
Uh
gas
huh.
wells are hiring again, and the coal mines are hiring again. So maybe it'll help out our economy in this area.
All right. Cool. Good. For the gas mines y'all have out there, is it traditional or are y'all doing more of the fracking out there? Or do you know?
Uh, there, a lot of them are the gases that are produced, the methane, the coal bed methane gas from the
Okay.
coal mines. I
Okay.
was for years, you had to worry about, mine explosions. You have to ventilate those mines and
Uh
dust it
huh.
down with rock dust and a lot of ventilation in there because the gas build up and if there's a spark they'll blow. And so they would drill those wells and just vent that gas off and just let it go in the atmosphere. So now they're capturing it. You'd almost think that they could put in some power plants that would just run off of that methane from those coal mines. So anyway, Keith, you doing okay today? You and Jasmine?
I'm doing good.
Good.
I just gave an article to Mr. Scales you might find interesting. Last semester we did animal uh, science. There's a farmer out in Virginia. He's going with the miniature cattle. They're easier to manage uh, and he make more money per pound off of them than the big cattle.
Now, how's he marketing those, Keith? Is he doing a like a grass-fed home slaughter type deal, or?
He's going to the individual person because basically it's one miniature cow will supply a family of 4 for a year in the freezer. Yeah. It's
How much do they weigh? Are they Tom, are those old the miniature cattle? Are those belt buckle type cattle from back in the 50s, or is this
no,
a different?
it's called low line Angus.
Right, but uh, back in the 50s and 60s, um, the trend was for these small cattle, and they referred to them as belt buckle cattle because they only came up to about your waist.
There's a
Is
picture
that
here.
the same thing,
Can you,
Tom?
can you see the picture?
That I'm not sure. I'm not really familiar with those from the 50s. I was a little bit
he can-
anti-young then.
He can raise 12 miniature cows per 5 acres.
Okay. What they did, I mean, if you take a look at, let me see what I can find here real quick. Uh, you take a look at those old stock show pictures. Let me see if, I mean, they were all sorts of, uh, different breed. Uh,
Yeah, he's got miniature Hereford as well as the Angus.
yeah, I was trying to see that picture. Hold on a second. Can you see that picture on the screen? That was from 1903, I think. Is that about the size of those cattle? See how short
Uh,
that thing is?
Probably. We don't have a human in the picture to compare to, but probably. It says they're about 65% the height of or 65% of a regular. And like I say, they're coming in 700 to 1,000 pounds. They've got one that the back of the miniature comes up about to the bottom of the neck of a full-grown Hereford. So he's 2/3 the height of a full-grown Hereford. So they're probably about
I'd
the same.
say it may be what they're referring to as those. See, there's another picture right there. Look how short this one is. As a champion steer or bull. I can't remember what they said. Yearling, as a yearling show bull. Uh, Take a look at that one.
Oh my.
I think that's, they carry the dwarfism gene, but that's what people were breeding for back in the early 1900s and 1950s. And then now, then in the 80s, let's see, well, it was 69, but then in the 80s, we start getting these big tall cattle. I probably had some Chianina in with it. I mean, you can see they liked them tall and lean, and then found out they were awful big. So, now we're looking at a more moderate sized calf cattle from, you know, they seem to have gone to extremes from the belt buckle to the ones over your head to now a more production oriented size. Uh, I think those miniature cattle in that situation for that guy in Virginia, you know, if he's found that niche market for them, that would be good. Uh, I'll have to tell Evan about that. The Because he's, you know, they're putting in they're trying to build a slaughter plant, and he's wanting to have a herd, you know, to do slaughter for local slaughter, but also he wants to get a herd of grass-fed beef and promote it. So that may work good for him. Those miniature type cattle
Did I not cut that
to
part out? Okay.
where, you know, to sell it to a family, a whole beef like that.
Hand it to me, and I probably can tell you this.
It says
So
daily news record.
Richmond Time Dispatch.
Okay.
There you go.
that's kind of interesting. Now, something I read an article in the Washington Post last week, pertains to human resources and agriculture labor. This was a study done in North Carolina regarding migrant laborers, and looking if migrant laborers are pushing Americans out of jobs. We hear that argument all the time that them, the migrant laborers are taking all the American jobs. And what this study found is that the people, at least in agriculture, that the farmers, would offer a job, a seasonal job at a certain amount of pay, and they were as likely to hire Americans as they would migrant workers. And what they found throughout the years of this study, and I don't remember how many years it was, that the Americans they hired would not stay on for the full season. They would quit. And whereas the migrant workers would stay on the full season. So they continued their research, and they found out that the Americans would say, well, it wasn't paying enough. If it paid more, I would have stayed longer, or I would have stayed out the season, or the work was too hard for the amount of pay. So their deduction was if the farmers paid more money
This is not
to
available.
keep the Americans,
It's
then
got both the audio and before.
they would probably go out of
Click on it
business,
to see what happens.
or food would be so, really expensive.
Oh.
So
And then you
I think that
See, and it doesn't do anything.
that deal of
Get
them
that
taking
straight. That's right.
jobs away from Americans,
Doesn't work.
I think Americans don't want to work or have too high of a,
And you click down there, and it just
idea of a
spins,
standard
spins,
living.
says, well, open when completed. And nothing ever happens.
so what's y'all's opinion about that? Think they're right?
Keep going. You'll get a blank screen. Then you
They
get a
are.
circle.
I think they are too, Jasmine. Okay,
Mine just
we'll go ahead
finally
and get
back.
started.
Question for you. And
Yeah.
I had a third article I cut out, and between my house and here, it disappeared. But I missed last Thursday's class. You might have covered this. And I think this came out of the Lancaster Farming Magazine. It was talking about seasonal agriculture workers. But basically, I guess the government is trying to get people to hire all types of college students, especially high school students. I guess the theme is you keep kids busy, they stay out of trouble. And they said to reduce the paperwork, a prospective employer files a WE form and that way they are exempt from filing for federal income tax withholding and stuff because the person, I guess, would get the money back at the end of the season. But the question I have, and I don't remember it stating, do you still have to withhold FICA and state income tax if you do I think it's WE is what I remember.
I don't know about that. I don't know what kind of exceptions they would have on that with that WE. That's something we'd have to look up.
Okay, thanks.
And what type of laws or exceptions the government would have on a certain program like that.
I think it was trying to eliminate the paperwork and stuff for the employer because most, I guess, summer workers, technically, I guess they file the following year, they would get their federal income tax money back.
Well, I do know, right now, if you pay somebody more than $1,500, you got to send them a W-2 form. So, I mean, they're going to have to do that. I would imagine the employer would still have to withhold the FICA on that, whether, even though the college students may get that back. But, that's interesting you brought that up right after I was talking about that research from North Carolina with the migrant workers. So maybe it'll fly. Maybe the Americans will go do that type of work for that amount of pay. I don't know.
Because actually they'd be making more money in their paycheck.
Well, when I was in college, and I worked, because I didn't, I was a full-time college student and I worked part-time at the farm, and they withheld FICA tax. They paid their share. They withheld it from my check. But when I did taxes at the end of the year, because I earned, below that a certain level, I got all that money back. Does that make sense?
Was it just
Or
a
I
federal
got
tax
some
or?
of it. Well, no, I don't know if I got the FICA back, but I did get some of that, some of those taxes they held back on me.
Right.
Because
I guess
I was only working part-time.
I guess my understanding reading this article, best of my memory, is that you wouldn't have to file to get the money back because technically you didn't make enough to pay taxes on it. So your take-home pay would be higher than normal if by not withholding taxes.
Yeah, it would be higher, but I don't know. I'm just wondering how they're going to keep the honest people honest with that type of situation. I mean, if that's all they do, they work full time in the summertime and then go to school, they're probably not going to earn enough. Or if they make an exception across the board for full-time college students that are working, I don't know how they would do that, because depending on the jobs you have, it could put you over that limit. There were a lot of college students down in this part of the country. They would go to college in the fall and then come back in the summertime and on winter breaks and go work in the coal mines and making, I guess at that time they were making well over $100 a day. So, that would have put them over that limit, working full time at the coal mines and doing overtime shifts all summer long.
I guess the caveat, I guess this provides to students. So those students then are not college students. They are ex-college students. They probably wouldn't qualify for it then.
I don't know. These were college students. They just work at the coal mines in the summertime, then go back in the fall and work at them in spring break and Christmas break and Thanksgiving break.
I thought maybe they were taking off the semester to work. Okay.
No. But then again, it's not agriculture. Maybe that just applies only to agriculture jobs. I don't know. I don't know the details on that.
Okay.
So I hadn't heard about that before. But let's get started, and I'll try to do some research on that deal. Look at it.
Thank you.
Yeah, not a problem. Last week Thursday we talked about Chapter 7 with pay structure. Chapter 8 talks about incentives. And there's,
Okay, man,
when we think about incentives, you know, pretty much the same thing as bonuses. Okay. Typically in our area or, places I've worked on farms, we got a Christmas bonus. We got, a certain percentage of our income as a Christmas bonus. So that was kind of a structured type deal. Everybody got it based on their income for the year. When we think about bonuses or incentives, there's two types. There's
It's W4. Oh, it's W4.
you have casual incentives and you have structured incentives. And generally, incentives or bonuses, they're given for performance rather than the time that's worked. The Christmas bonus is probably an exception. Not all places give Christmas bonuses. I know they did it on the farm I worked at, but any government job I've had, I never received a Christmas bonus. But generally, bonuses or incentives are given for performance rather than the time that you've worked. And I said there's two types. There's casual and there's structured. Now, with structured incentives, for farmers, they work pretty well. As I said, most farmers will give one at Christmas time, or at least the farms I've worked on. And, that kind of helps you get through the Christmas season and gives you a little bit extra cash. They work well. They can be challenging to incorporate. When I was a manager at Stewart's, part of my pay, I got a salary and a place to live and a vehicle, but I also got production bonuses or production incentives. So if, I started the year, in October, we looked at how many pregnant cows I had. And then in the spring or the following October, when I weaned the calves off, I got a percentage on the number of calves I weaned, that I calved out, kept alive during the summer, and we got weaned. So if it was over, 90%, 80, maybe 85 to 90%, somewhere in that range, I got a bonus for that. And then I got a bonus on the cows that we AI'd. How many cows, that we went through the heat check process, feeding them properly in the wintertime so that they would cycle early in the season, and then, giving them the synchronization drugs and heat checking. If they came up pregnant in the fall, then I got a bonus if we got a certain percentage of those cows bred by artificial insemination. The bad part of that incentive was I wasn't doing the insemination. Somebody else was. So technique could have played a part in that, or it could have helped me. It could have hurt me, or it could have helped me. But anyway, those were the structured incentives that I had at Stewart's. The calves weaned, and the cows bred by AI, and then the Christmas bonus. And so the structured incentives, they work well. They're challenging to set up, um, but you need to, you have to have a goal that the workers can achieve to achieve, or to, in order to receive that incentive. Uh, and so, what they've found out is that it's difficult to set those standards, you know, to come up with a standard in order for that worker to achieve. In some instances, in my instance with the cattle, it wasn't that hard. But in other deals, it is difficult to set those standards. Uh, if they're not set up properly and the workers don't feel they can achieve that, you don't get any change in performance. So how you set those incentives up are critical, because the workers have to feel that they can achieve those goals in order to get that bonus. But if they don't feel that way, or they don't trust you, you're not going to get any change in performance or change the quality of their work. And then sometimes, in order for them to achieve those bonuses, they're going to have to change their work methods or make adaptations into technology. And sometimes people are hesitant to change.
Ms. Farthing, I never really got Christmas bonuses or holiday bonuses, whatever you call, or end of the year bonuses. But where I've worked, they always time the evaluation process around end of the year, hence Christmas time, and that's when you got your bonus for the year. So I guess it was kind of nice getting that because you had extra money for the holidays.
Right. And that's, you got a year, your evaluation and bonuses based on it. That too would be a structured incentive. But these bonuses, these Christmas bonuses, they're just based on how much money you earned. It wasn't based on performance or anything like that. And the guy told me, he said, "Hey, it's just a Christmas bonus. Help you get through the Christmas season." But this was on the farm. Like I said, I never, out in private industry, outside of farming, I've never received one. My wife, she's a physician's assistant in dermatology. And so she gets a salary, plus she gets bonuses on how much money she earns, or how much money she brings into the practice. She gets a percentage of that. And so they give that to her quarterly throughout the year, those bonuses. And so in December, she got a bonus check, and it wasn't very much. She said, I got a bonus. I got my bonus in, but it's only this amount of money. This is not right. I got to go talk to HR about it. And I said, "Honey, this is probably a Christmas bonus. It wasn't based on production. It's just a bonus. It's your Christmas present from your employer, basically." And she said, "I've never heard of that." And I said, "Well, I tell you, it's probably what it is. They do that. Businesses, or some people, employers around this area do that." So she went to HR lady and asked her, and she said, "Yeah, it's just a Christmas bonus. This isn't your production bonus." And so that kind of impressed her that they did that. So anyway, farmers or agriculture people don't like to give a lot of bonuses. One is because we work on margins. We don't have a lot of money to spend out. And secondly, farmers don't like to do a lot of record keeping. So, to do bonuses, you're going to have to keep records. these structured bonuses. So it's a little bit extra work for the farmers. They'll just do a lot of them just do a Christmas bonus and be done with it. Um, or, they come up with the excuse, well, there's no way we can do incentives to apply to my present methods of farming. How do, because they're just farm laborers. How do I do an incentive on it? So a lot of times they're not used just because of lack of information on how to set them up. But they when they're set up properly and the workers have a chance to achieve those goals and they're measurable, because I guarantee you they'll keep track of them. I did. I kept track of how, I kept records of all my production stuff. So I knew what my bonus was going to be. And if it wasn't it, and when he gave me my bonus check and that wasn't it, I asked him about it. And usually it was just a mathematical error on one of our parts, and it was no big deal. But, but he knew I kept my records. So, the trust has to be there, and they do have to be achievable, and they do have to be set up good in order for those things to work. And you can increase performance or quality of work with properly established incentives. And it needs to be well understood. You don't need any shades of gray with these structured incentives. So in order to establish these incentives, you got to figure out what's the challenge, what do you need, what do they need to do in order to get that incentive? Do they need to get more cows pregnant? They need to wean more calves, pick more apples. Or groom more dogs? What do they need to do? And then you're going to have to figure out, you're going to have to link that pay or that bonus with their performance. And then establish standards, so everything's clear. At the same time, you want to protect your workers from negative consequences. If a blizzard comes in right in calving season, and a lot of my calves get froze up and die, or we have a real bad case of scours and I lose a lot of calves, that does not hurt my regular pay. Does that make sense? If something beyond their control happens, it's not going to hurt what the worker gets paid. They're just not going to get that bonus. Does that make sense?
Yes.
So, and the other thing too, you want to protect your workers. We're putting more on our workers to reach, for production or quality. Sometimes we have the tendency not to hire as many people, so they have to work longer hours. So, make sure you protect them. You don't want to risk injury or sickness, overheating or whatever in the summertime. So keep everything fair. Let everybody know what's going on. Provide a fair wage, but the bonus is a bonus. It's not their deal. Their pay is not dependent on that. And then the other thing you got to think of is if you have older workers working for you, they may not be able to reach that bonus because their endurance may not be there. So you got to protect those people. You need to give performance feedback let them know how they're doing in relation to these production goals. Uh, so you just need to protect everybody, be fair, make everything black and white. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Um, the casual incentives are different. They are, the book gives an example of this worker was with this farmer for 5 years. And so, the farmer liked loyalty. And so at this 5 year anniversary for this worker, he called in a meeting of all the farm workers and had his wife show up and said, hey, you've been with me for 5 years. I'm going to, give you a little bonus. I'm sending you and your wife away this weekend, little vacation getaway, and here's $500. And counted it out in front of all the other people and said, thanks for being there for me for the last 5 years. Go enjoy your weekend getaway, and here's some money you can blow on it. And, that goes a long way. One of the things that we would do there at Stewart's, we put up a lot of hay. And, those guys, we had a hay crew, and they worked 6 days a week cutting and baling hay unless it was raining. And then the rainy days, they were fixing equipment and servicing equipment and stuff. So at the end of the hay season, it was nothing unusual to give them a bonus for their extra time. Sometimes it happened, sometimes it didn't. Sometimes on a Saturday, we would go in and say, boys, y'all just take the rest of the day off. Don't work, you got a lot done this week. You got a lot done this morning. Let's just call it a day. They were kind of a spur of a moment type deal of letting them have a half a day off. Or you say, okay, sometimes in the tobacco deal, we'd be working tobacco, and we'd say, hey, you get this field topped today. If you can get this field topped, you can go home. And, that's an incentive to work a little bit harder, a little bit faster. And so instead of finishing at 5 or 6, you may finish, we hustled it. We finished at 3, and we still received a full day's pay and had a couple extra hours to spend at the house.
Yeah, a friend of mine, he works for Cummins, and he was like, Friday, the boss came in, and he's like, y'all been doing a whole bunch, y'all been working too hard this week. I want everybody out of here by 3 o'clock today. Of course, Don was like, he just jinxed us because suddenly the phone rings and somebody had a problem, but the boss was ready to let everybody go at 3 o'clock, just on a whim.
That and those things go a long ways. If you do something like that, hold true to your word. Don't cut their pay. And then you pray that you don't jinx them, that something breaks down or they have to go out for something else. You know what I mean? Because those things are unavoidable. Hopefully, the people had to go out there understood that. But, the one thing you don't want to do as an employer or as a manager or supervisor, you do not want to betray their trust. So always hold true to your end of the bargain. Now, another thing we see in agriculture with pay is you're paid just on production. An example of this would be blueberries. When people, these blueberry farmers will hire a crew to come in to harvest the blueberries. And they don't pay them by the hour. They pay them by the volume of blueberries and the quality of blueberries that they harvest. And that's okay as long as you meet the minimum wage requirements. So if you're doing that, you know, they're going to have to be able to pick enough blueberries to get the minimum wage for an hour. But if they pick more, they get paid more. Does that make sense? And the other thing with that, you got to make sure, you know, because some people, you know, people will hustle. So if they're getting paid by how much they're harvesting and the quality they're harvesting, you know, you're going, and it's hot, you better make sure they take some rest breaks. You got to protect your workers. Any questions?
We're good.
Okay. So in conclusion about incentives, make sure both parties understand the mechanics of the incentive. Make sure the worker has control. And don't change the rules midstream to short the workers. If you change your rules midstream, make sure it's to the worker's benefit, not to hurt them. You don't want to lose that trust. So that's about it for wage and incentives. So what I wanted to do next, I wanted to pull up the syllabus here. Come on, pull up. Now, this weekend, we kind of moved everything back a week because we did that performance review earlier. So this weekend, the interview plan, the questions, and the discrimination are due. Keith, you already did yours. So that's due this coming weekend. Well, I don't guess we pushed that back. I'm sorry. But anyway, we just threw that other one in there. So we're back on time because this weekend will be the 23rd. So this weekend, that's due. The following weekend is the decision scorecard is due. Okay, Tom, I see you got a question.
No, I'm counting in my head. Sorry. I need my fingers.
All right. So this decision scorecard, let me explain to you what that is. Or I'll come back to it. Tom, is your spring break the same as theirs, March?
Yes. Yes, ours is the same as yours. John has got a weird one, but that really only affects my class, so otherwise we're straight.
All right, so then the following week we have spring break. Now typically, you know, when we had all three students from all three schools in here, one would be a week off. And so what I did, or what I allowed people, or what I said we could do, or did during the week that we were shut down, they could go ahead and finish up the rest of their assignments. So if you get ambitious, you can finish up your assignments over spring break if you miss me that much. So, you know, you can get these things done, send them in anytime, and I'll grade them. But then we'll have spring break at, I guess that's the second week of March or first week of March.
The first full week, like the 5th through
First
the
full week of
10th.
March. Yeah. So,
Do you have the rubric online for the decision scorecard? I didn't see that.
I do. It's in It's under course content.
Yeah. I must be getting old.
The
or
grading,
blind.
the grading criteria for assignments.
Yeah.
If you go to the hiring sheet cover guide,
Oh, I see it. Okay, it's the bottom. Okay. I'm sorry. Okay.
that's all right. Let me explain that to you once we get this thing downloaded. So, the decision scorecard um, includes approximately 10 items that adequately cover the requirements listed on the job description. Includes the weighting factor column, the actual rating column, and the final score column. So you read that, you're thinking, what is this? So it's not that difficult. Let me show you. Say, for instance, we'll pick on Jasmine a minute, give Keith a break. If you have the Jasmine's doing a pet grooming business, and I'm just going this off the top of my head, so Jasmine, speak up. So
We lost the video.
Yeah, you did. I hit the wrong button. Thank you. So,
Some of us are used to being kept in the dark.
yeah, I am. I'm treated like a mushroom sometimes. So, so what she would do, or what you'll do, is you'll write down what's the 10 most important things for the potential employer to do, or what's the 10 most important things to me. So as a pet groomer, you know, you want experience with animals, cats and dogs, because, you know, they need to feel comfortable being around a dog. They want experience of, or, you know, office skills may be important to her, of being able to answer the phone, scheduling appointments, scheduling pickups, and taking the dogs back after grooming. Biosecurity, or may be important to her with cleanliness. With, you know, keeping everything disinfected, keeping everything clean, keeping the dog kennels clean while they're there, keeping the animals separated so they don't, you know, if one's sick, it doesn't pass on the disease to something else. So, you know, whatever, you know, about 10 things that's most important to her, that this person, the potential people possess, or what's important to her, she's going to list. And then she's going to come over here and say, all right, how important are these traits? You know, if I'm doing this on a scale from 1 to 5, you know, the experience or being comfortable around dogs, that's going to be very important. So that's going to weigh 5 points. Office skills, I can teach her how to do that. I can teach my employee how to do that. You know, that may be worth 3 points to me. Or, well, no. Or it may be, you know, how do I how am I wanting to say this? If we got a scale from 1 to 5, if these, you know, she, uh, you're going to grade each person, or you're going to have like an actual column where you're going to put down a score from 1 to 5 for each of those traits uh, that person does. But I want you to know, how important, say this would be 100% important to me, or the office skills may be 50% important. How are you going to come up with a score, to rank these potential employees?
So just to clarify, the first column is your expectation of the ideal candidate, and the next column and subsequent columns after that is going to be each candidate. That say you have 3 candidates, so you'll have 3 additional columns, candidate A, B, and C.
No, I mean, like, what I'm looking for, I want you to list what's important to you. I want you to put how you would, how important are those things to you, and then your actual rating to them. If the experience is the most important thing, then, they have to have that. So that's 100% important to me, and they score 5 points, then my actual rating on that person would be, and the numbers, I don't care what numbers you use. So that would be,
Which are one thing you could, excuse me, one thing you could do is like, if experience is twice as important as office skills, then you could rate their experience on a scale of 1 to 10 and their office skills on a scale of 1 to 5. Or something like that. So then they get a 10 in the, and then the ideal candidate would get a 10 in experience and a 5 in office, and they get a score of 15. And so you can sort of build it in that way. And then to answer Keith's other question is, ideally experience would be on a scale of 1 to 10, office would be 1 to 5, and then that third column would be where you put the number that the person actually got. You can sort of glue them together that way, or what Dwayne is doing is he's saying experience is huge, and on a scale of 1 to 5, he's doing a weighted average, and then over there on say the person.
Well, I guess that's what I'm getting confused on. I can see the third column being the prospective employee that you have on your first column. You have what's important, what the ideal candidate would get the 5, would get the 10 and stuff. But then you're going to be looking. He says, well, no, out of 10, he's got an 8, and out office experience, he's got a 3. That should be the third column then, right? Am I confusing this?
My third column is going to be the actual rating of that individual.
Yeah.
Exactly. So what is the second column then? I guess that's what I'm confused on.
The second column is my weighing factor. So, like, go ahead, Tom.
Oh, I was just saying the second column is listing how important the item is numerically. And then the third column is going to be for the candidate, what did they get? So, for experience, just if we change the numbers the way I had it, if experience is 1 to 10 and then office was 1 to 5, then the third column would be Keith. And Keith, for experience on scale of 1 to 10, got a 9. For office skills, he got a 2. So, that would be what that third column would end up being.
So then you're saying, okay,
so you'd have a separate sheet of paper for each candidate, and you compare them at the end.
I guess I'm getting confused.
Can you speak up, Keith? I can't hear you.
I guess my brain's still asleep this morning. I'm just getting confused between column 1 and column 2 because they look redundant to me. So you're saying experience working with animals has a rating of 5, which is the highest. So then you go to the second column, and you're going to say out of that 5, you're going to rate somebody 1 to 10?
No, okay, we're talking 2 different things here. Yeah. All right, let me go back. So say we have, our item of importance. Okay. Then we have our rating system or weighing factor. And then we have our actual value. So we'll just do it the way Tom was explaining it because it'd be easier that way. Everybody's mind works different. So say we have experience with animals. And this is very important to me, because I got a dog grooming business. They got to be comfortable. So I'm going to weigh this from 1 to 10. I'm going to rate that individual from 1 to 10 on their experience. Say the office skills, that's not that important to me because I can teach that. I can teach it pretty quick. Fairly simple stuff. So maybe my weighing factor on that will be from 1 to 5. My, how well they pay attention to detail, because, Mrs. Jones' little bunny foo-foo poodle has to be trimmed, show quality. So maybe paying attention to details and how you would judge that, I don't know, but, that's going to be important to me because, I want happy clients. So I may rank that one from 1 to 10. So then I would put an actual value out here for these people, for my candidate. So as I get in the resumes, I can look at my sheet on what's important, how I'm going to factor it, and assign a value. So like on the, I get John Doe's resume in here, and I go over John's resume. I rank all this, what's important to me, and I give him a value of maybe 30 or maybe 50. I don't know, whatever my numbers come up to be. And then,
So how do you determine the actual value? That's where I'm confused on that part.
well, you look at John's resume here, and I'm just trying to eliminate who I want to interview and who I don't want to interview, or not interview. I'm trying to come up with my decision on who I'm going to hire. I've got experience with dogs. I got my office, got my details. I've had my interviews. How did they do in their interviews?
So the actual then is the actual evaluation of the individual candidate's resume you're looking at.
Yeah, I'm looking at my resumes. I've gone through the interview process. I might have done a practical exam.
So that's what I thought. Okay.
Yeah, I'm sorry. So okay, I'm going to weigh, I'm going to weigh what's important to me. The traits that's important to me. I'm going to weigh their interviews, their practical exams, whatever I did. And I'm going to rank the people. And then I'm going to make a decision on who, I've got documentation on how I ranked everybody.
Okay, I got you.
And
I see it now.
I can make a decision on who I'm going to make an offer to.
Yeah. Can I jump in for a second? Just to give a metaphor for y'all, this is what Dwayne does when he makes y'all's tests. He's got some questions. He says this question is worth 8 points, where this fill in the blank is only worth 2 points. And then, so, over there, that's the weighting numbers he's talking about. That would be the second column of the sheet. This question's worth up to 8. This one's worth 2. This true and false is only worth 1 point. And then he goes through and he grades the quality of your answers, determines how many of the 8, how many of the 2, how many of the 1 you actually get to determine your grade. That's ultimately what we're doing. What he's doing there is he's got his grading rubric, and he's grading John Doe's resume and interview. That's basically what he's doing, and he's got the list of things that he's grading him on.
Yeah.
So you mean the cash money I've been sending you doesn't help?
No, it doesn't help me. My wife's enjoying it though, because I'm taking her out to dinner.
Okay, thanks.
Or may save up enough to take her to Ruth Chris's. I don't know. You might have to send me a little bit more.
Checks in the mail.
Okay. So, how important, how would I rank my interview? How important is that to me? Some people don't interview well, but boy, this one lady, she knew her stuff when it came to clipping dogs. She doesn't get along, if she doesn't have that good front desk interacting with clients very well, that, with her skills of being practical of her doing her job, I can keep her hid away from the public, or keep this guy hid away from the public and have him doing my trimming. You know what I mean? What's most important to you? So the reason for this, guys, is because if you ever, if you hired, say, John Doe over Jane, and Jane got upset saying you're being sexist for hiring a guy over me, you've got documentation on why you chose John over Jane, or chose Jane over John. Because if that ever gets questioned, you got it covered. Remember, you want to document everything you do. Any questions? Hopefully that will help you figure that one out. So the other thing we want to talk about, these other ones here, the offer letter, fairly simple and basic. You can look at it. The rejection, don't say anything more than you don't have to say. Just say, we hired the person most qualified for the job. Do not give them any reasons why you didn't hire them. Thank them for their interest.
So what you want? Oh, quick question. So what you want for what our assignment should be the criteria you're looking for on the left, then the factors of rating. So since we're not looking at actual resume, we'll just be leaving the actual blank, right?
Yeah. Just give me the factor, and then have a third column in here for the actual value you could write it on. That's all I want.
But we're not putting the actual value down because we don't have the resume.
No, because you're not going to be evaluating somebody.
Okay, gotcha. Thank you.
Tell me how you're going to evaluate it. Does that make sense?
Yes, it does.
Okay. So, if you have any questions, give me a call. But these others are pretty explanatory. And then our other assignment you have is for compensation. So if you're hiring somebody, you're going to have to pay them. So what's this going to cost you as an employer? And that's what I want to go over today. So this assignment for compensation, you're going to tell me how much you're going to pay them. You're going to list, and that's going to be either a wage or salary position, 40, say 25,000 a year, or $7.25 an hour, or $10 an hour. You're going to list all the benefits that are provided with the job, or
Mr. Scales, what is
not provided with the job. You're going to show your calculations for FICA, Sutra, FUTRA, workman's comp, insurance, escalation costs, which are pay raises. And then you're going to tell me, if you're providing housing, or, a lot of farms will provide housing or allow you to keep a horse or give you a beef or provide housing and give you a beef. Farm that ranch I worked on in Colorado, they gave you a beef every year or gave the full-time people a beef every year. So that has a value to it. And they provided them housing. Stewards provided housing. So all that's going to cost you as an employee, as an employer. So I'm wanting you to figure out what it's going to cost you to hire somebody, because I can guarantee you this: if you're paying them $10 an hour, it's not going to cost you $10 an hour. It's going to cost you more.
I'll ask him. Question
So
for you. On
yeah,
part four, on a compensation assignment, I know what the FICA is, but what's the Futra? I don't know what that is.
that's unemployment tax. I was getting ready to go over it. Federal and state unemployment tax, and I'll show you how to calculate this stuff. So you've got that assignment as well, and that's also in that same folder as where your hiring grade cover sheet is. That's your grading rubric for it, for the compensation assignment. So let me go over this deal. What does an employee cost? When we start thinking about what's it cost for an employee, they're expensive. We've recruited them, and recruiting takes a lot of time. You've sat down, you've wrote a job announcement, you wrote a job description, you've advertised, you went through and narrowed down the applicants, went through an interview process, you did orientation and training them. All that takes time and it takes money. So the recruiting and getting them on board and getting them trained, it takes time and money. So it's expensive. So now you got to think about a salary, employment taxes. Now, Jasmine, when you go to work, you work at Dollar Tree, and I don't know what they pay you an hour. Let's just say, just for instance, they pay you minimum wage. When you get your check, are there any deductions on that check? Do you take home $7.25 an hour, or do you take home less?
I think it's less, but they don't send me a check or anything. They just put it straight into my bank account. They don't send me a pay stub or nothing.
Okay. There's probably a place online you can look at it though, right?
They haven't told me anything, but I think it is. I'm not sure.
Okay. Aaron, what about you? I didn't know you'd showed up.
Mine is online also, but I can see my pay stub.
Okay. So there are deductions taken out of your paycheck. Employment taxes.
But yeah, to answer your question, there I can see some tax deductions coming out of my check.
Yeah. Okay. So on these employment taxes, as an employee, you pay half of it, and the employer pays half of it. So that's why those deductions are taken out of your check. Now, as an employer, if you're hiring somebody full time, and you offer benefits, what kind of benefits are you going to offer? Life insurance, health insurance, disability, dental, retirement. Part-time people's probably not going to have that. but full-time people probably will. Okay. Uh, so as a general rule of thumb, as an employer, life insurance is going to cost you about $150. Usually an employer, they do that, I guess, to be nice. And it's usually a low policy, somewhere like around $10,000, enough to get you buried if you go cheap on your funeral and casket. But that's going to cost you about $150 a year. Health insurance varies. It's going to be anywhere from $2,000 to $7,000 and up. A lot of employers that offer health insurance, they'll pay a percentage, and the employee pays a percentage. They may pay half of the health insurance premiums, and you pay the other half. And then, there's other benefits you can offer: long-term disability, dental, or retirement. So, these are some of the things you're going to have to pay. Here's what you're going to have to plan on. FICA, and you heard us mention that earlier. That's Social Security, employment taxes, and that is, the total on that is 7.65%. So as an employer, you're paying half of that, and your employee is paying the other half. So you're going to deduct that. You're going to deduct the check you give them. Half of that's going to be deducted out of their check, but the other half is coming out of your pocket. Workers' compensation. It varies depending on the job. The more dangerous the job, the higher it's going to be. Agriculture, working on farms, typically that's going to be about 10% of what you're paying them. So if you're paying them $10 an hour, it's going to be about $1 an hour you're going to be paying into workman's comp. And how do you know if you have to have workers' comp? If you have more than 2 employees, you have to have workers' comp. That's the law. So if you have a farm and say, Aaron, you have a farm and you're an employee, your wife's an employee, and your son is an employee, you've got three people, you have to have it. So, Jasmine, you got a dog grooming business. If you have a secretary, yourself, and one person part-time, you've got 3 employees, you will have to have it. If it's just you and your employee, you need to check with your insurance to make sure your insurance covers them. But anytime you have more than 2 employees, you are required to have workman's compensation. Health insurance, if you offer health insurance, that's about 12% of their wage, either on an hourly basis or a salary basis. General rule of thumb is about 12%. Vacation, 1 week paid. If you offer them a paid, one of the benefits, paid vacation, it's about 2% of their salary. Holidays, Christmas, 4th of July, Memorial Day, Labor Day, Thanksgiving, and the day after, those 6 major holidays, typically they're paid if you offer it. Again, that's about 2%. Sick days, usually you get a week sick leave somewhere, Again, that's 2% of their salary. Escalation, that's pay raises. Factor in about 2.5% for that, because you know you're gonna have to give them a pay raise. They expect a pay raise after a while. You know, as an employee, you want to get a pay raise, right? The longer you've been there. You have a question, Aaron?
I did have a question because so we pretty much pay for our vacation. They take it out of our check. Is that what you're saying?
No, you're the employer. You're paying for the vacation.
Okay, so that's 2%
This is the
is coming from.
factor. You know, yeah, this is how much you can factor that employer is going to cost you. I mean, that employee is going to cost you. You know, if you're paying somebody, you know, $10 an hour, and you're offering, you know, these benefits, you're looking at paying half of this 7.65%. $10 an hour, 10% of that would be $1 for workman's comp. Health insurance would be $1.20 or $1.02, right?
So really, in this example, they'd be making probably what, $13.50 an hour then with the benefits? If you're paying them
Well,
$10
if
an
you're
hour?
paying, I'm looking at, if you're paying this person $10 an hour and you're offering these things, this is what it's going to cost you. This is in addition to what you're paying them.
Or it'd be $40 an hour then, equivalent to all this stuff then, right?
Well,
So if you add all that up.
it's going to be about 40% more.
Yeah, right, 40%, yeah.
So if you're paying somebody $10 an hour, you're looking at adding another, you know, as an employer, they're actually going to cost you about $14 more,
Yeah, right.
or an additional $4. So it's going to cost you about $14 an hour to hire somebody and pay them $10 an hour. And this is what I want you to do for your assignment, your compensation assignment. So
Well, would you ever get to the point where you say, look, I'll pay you this to you, but if you get these benefits and stuff, insurance and vacation stuff, I have to pay you this much less?
you just wouldn't offer it. If they want to take a vacation, they're not at work, you're not going to pay them. When you worked with that job that you used to have, did they give you a paid vacation?
Oh, yeah. I got 6 weeks off a year.
Wow. All right. So 1 week was, they figured 2% of your salary, so 6 weeks would be 12 weeks of your salary. That came out of your employer's pocket.
Yeah. But
Did you
then I
get
had to
any
double.
sick days?
But then I had to double time it, triple time it when I came back from being. I could never take it all at once, though. It was like a few days here, a week here, that kind of stuff.
Right.
But
you had sick days. They didn't dock you.
Actually, what they do, they call it PTO, pay time off. So sick time,
Or
anything, vacation, it came out of that 6 week pile.
Okay. All right. So, this is what it's costing. These are those extra costs as an employer that you're paying.
But I was just saying that if you're in a competitive environment and you're looking for a seasonal worker and your competitor's paying $10 an hour with these benefits, and you could be offering, say, $14 an hour without going through the headaches of offering all these benefits and completing the paperwork, filing the necessary forms and stuff, seems like it'd be more economical and better to the prospective employee just to pay him the higher wage and forgo all this benefit stuff.
Well, for seasonal employment, you're not going to offer this stuff. You're going to pay them an hourly wage. You're going to pay, if you have more than 2 people working for you, you're going to be paying them an hourly wage. You're going to take out your half, you're going to be paying your half of the FICA, half of the 7.65%. You're going to be paying workman's comp if you have more than 2 people. And that's it. You may have to pay unemployment tax. FUTRA and SUTRA is federal and state unemployment tax. Now, the way that works, the first $8,000 that they earn, you have to pay 3.08%, and then it drops down to 2%.
Go back to the FICA. I'm confused on the FICA. Is it half that I'm paying the 7.65, or am I paying the 7.65 total?
You're paying half of it.
Half. Okay, gotcha.
You pay half of that, and then you deduct the other half from the employee's paycheck.
Gotcha. Thank you.
To the government. This FUTRA and SUTRA, and we're running out of time. Agriculture, a farmer is exempt from paying that unless they're paying $20,000 every 3 months in wages. So, Jasmine's going to have to pay it on her dog grooming business. Aaron's going to have to pay it for his feed supply store. But where you're raising bees and it's an ag commodity, you're exempt from that, Keith, because you got a bee farm.
Right. Okay, thanks.
Okay? So you're going to figure all these stuff out for the people you're going to pay, total it up. So typically, it's going to be about 40% more than what you pay than what 40% more than what their hourly wage or yearly salary.
Are these items mandated by law, or is it up to the employer to determine what they're going to offer for full-time employees?
Well, FICA is mandated. Workman's comp's mandated if you have over 2 employees.
Yeah.
FUTRA and SUTRA, the unemployment taxes are mandated if you're not a farmer, or if you're a farmer and you pay more than $20,000 every 3 months in wages. Now, I don't know exactly what the law is for the health insurance under Obamacare. Is it, if you have so many full-time people, you have to pay health insurance for them or something?
I think it's full-time employees.
Well,
Yeah,
anybody making more than 29 hours, 30 hours a week, you'd have to do it. But I think there's a minimum number of workers that you have to have. I can't remember what that number is.
Yeah, I'm thinking there's a minimum number of workers you have to have in order to have, before that's mandated to pay that. But vacation, holidays, sick leave, that's not mandated. So, you're probably not going to have that. You're going to have FICA, and that's probably going to be it for you.
Now, my next and last questions, are any of these benefits considered taxable income?
Tom?
The Social Security and stuff, FICA is not, because if you remember when you get your W-2 when you're doing your taxes, you've got 2 numbers on your tax your W-2 and you use the second one that's having pulled that out.
Well, health insurance, that's maybe save.
Your health insurance, it goes down. I was looking at our taxes the other day. It's like box 12 of your W-2. You get I'm not completely sure how it works in there, but you have to type it in. It goes in there somehow, so I guess there's a little something for it. But then the other stuff, the retirement and that kind. No, actually, it's retirement is what I'm thinking of. Retirement is their contributions. It depends on whether it's pre-tax, post-tax. It would be any money that they give you for vacation would be
Taxable.
taxable. Yes. It seemed like there was another one
Those
that
are
was in my brain.
taxable.
Yes, because it's extra income. Even money that they put. Well, that's 401k. Never mind.
Yeah.
Go ahead. I'm thinking out
I was
loud.
going to say, for this assignment, you're just worried what it's going to cost you. Let the employee go do their taxes. Not to be a smart aleck, but
Okay, thank you.
that's a whole different ball game. All right, guys, we're out of time. Jasmine, I'll see you tomorrow, and the rest of you, I'll see you Thursday. If you have any questions, don't be afraid to call me.
Seemed like I had a question for you from an hour ago, and I can't remember what it was.
All right. Well, you're welcome to call me if you think of it.